Welcome into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and it is time to finish off the kickoff of the rankings for the 2024 fantasy football season. We're going to finish this off with the quarterbacks, of course. That's right. You can check out over the past month, I have released videos on all the other positions, not DSTs yet. Tight ends, wide receivers, running backs, all of them have videos for my rankings, for my busts, for my sleepers. So I will leave links down to at least the videos for the rankings down in the description. So check those out if you haven't seen those videos yet. And before we get into this real quick, there will be some announcements at the end of the video, so check that out. But I do want to give you one announcement now, and a teaser for those announcements would be that the big thing there that you might have the most interested in at the end of the video would be about a listeners-only league. So if you're interested in getting into another league, check out, once again, back a couple minutes of the video. And one announcement is going to be that this week on Thursday, Thursday night, I'll be going live here on YouTube. So come join me. We'll do some drafting, maybe together, see if anybody comes, how that turns out, but just kind of starting to keep an eye out for any kind of new news that comes out through the week, stuff like that as well. Hang out and chat. Have any kind of discussions that we want on players, and like I said, do some drafting, and then I'll release the videos maybe edited down a little bit as well at some point during the week, possibly. So playing that part by ear, but without any further ado, let's just get right on into the quarterback rankings, and we're gonna be going by tiers here. I don't have these in any specific order. If you do want to see my exact order as they are now, which will probably change at least to some extent prior to the common draft weekend, you can go up onto the website www.theFFforge.com to find all the rankings for each of the positions, and there's a link down in the description to the website as well. So like I said, we're going in tiers. Tiers here are going to be confidence factor over 9,000, uncomfortably confident. The Y got cut out. It was a little bit too long there for that. Consistently competitive, low-end quarterback 1 / high-end quarterback 2 upside, because ultimately kind of going to hunt upside over other factors in general when drafting. Quarterback 2, risky / low upside, and will they even start? So I think we do have a little bit over 32 quarterbacks here. Let's get started off with Aaron Rodgers, who is going to be a low-end quarterback 1, high-end quarterback 2 kind of upside guy. He doesn't have the mobility that he had when he was younger. He has to really, really be efficient in terms of the touchdowns, lack of interceptions, of course. All things that we've seen him do before, but getting up there in age, how good is this receiving core? I don't know that it's anything fantastic like Chicago has or something, where I'm going to be sitting there saying for sure Aaron Rodgers is going to have like 40 plus touchdowns. So the upside is definitely there, especially on a week in and week out basis when it comes to the totality over the season. Yeah, there's going to be enough guys that I'd probably rather have than Aaron Rodgers in terms of fantasy football. That's going to bring us on to Anthony Richardson being one of those guys. In fact, I have a confidence level over 9,000 for Anthony Richardson in terms of fantasy football. Really, the sky is the limit for Anthony Richardson. Rushing upside should be there. They have not. In fact, they've come out and said, from any reports that I recall, that they're really not too concerned about, rushing the ball still with Anthony Richardson, even though he got quite banged up last year. A lot of those times that he got banged up, if I recall, are either a unique type of run. I don't know. Hopefully he'll get a little bit better at taking those hits so he doesn't get injured. But seemingly they're of the opinion that he doesn't need to just stop running the ball. And in fantasy football, running the ball goes a long, long ways. Just an FYI, I'm going off of standard scoring format here for quarterbacks. So 4 points per passing touchdown, 1 point per every 25 yards, or 4 points for 100 yards of passing. Obviously, things do change once you get to 6 points, or 1 point for every 20 yards. That brings up some of these guys like Aaron Rodgers a little ways, might knock down, and Anthony Richardson a little ways. Just kind of equals things out between the rushers and the passers in terms of the primary quarterback asset. So bring us on to Derek Carr, who is going to have some risky upside to him. I would say even low upside. We kind of know what Derek Carr is now, and last year wasn't so great. Hopefully it'll be a little bit better for him, but it's tough to imagine that it's going to be a whole heck of a lot better. So I'm not too excited about that. That's going to bring us on to Deshaun Watson. I'm going to put in the quarterback 2 category here. I was optimistic about him last year just based on previous years, but another injury, limited amount of time. When he did play, wasn't too fantastic. I am hopeful again, but I'm just a little less bullish on that hopefulness for seeing vintage Deshaun Watson ever again. I mean, we'll see. That's going to bring us on to Aiden O'Connell, and we don't know who's going to be the starter there right now. Gardner Minshew probably going to be starting out as the starter. Why do you bring him in for the amount of money that they brought him in for? But I don't know why you don't give Aiden. I thought he showed enough last year that you just give him a chance. You know what you got with Gardner Minshew. They're roughly the same thing right now in their careers, but Aiden O'Connell's had a lot less experience. So I don't know that whole situation makes 100% sense to me. That's going to bring us on to Drake May, who I would say has more upside here. This is more of a situational thing, is how many weeks into the season will he get his opportunity, and even then, how good will this offense be? I'm not overly optimistic about it in year 1, so one quarterback league. I'll take my chances on picking him up as a flyer if I need to mid-season when he becomes a starter or something like that, 4 weeks into the season. There is Gardner Minshew here. Same idea here. He got pretty lucky last year in some instances that things could have gone differently for him in terms of his fantasy production. He had some pretty solid weeks, but unfortunately, he's not as good of a quarterback as he is as entertaining of a person, which, by the way, if you haven't seen his quarterback, his photo shoot that he did for the 2024 NFL season, go check that out. Gardner Minshew being classic Gardner Minshew, hilarious dude. Quarterback 2, Geno Smith here is a quarterback 2 in my opinion in terms of fantasy football. He doesn't bring a whole lot of other assets. He's a fine quarterback for football, but just less upside, less premier play from him compared to some other guys who might have a little bit more upside. J.J. McCarthy is going to make it into this risky low upside group. We all felt pretty similarly about him in the draft process, though I am a believer of J.J. McCarthy. I think he'll make a fine quarterback. I do think that year 1 isn't going to be knock your socks off fantastic. So he's another guy too. Might not start at the beginning of the season, so we'll see how that all goes. Maybe he creeps up a little bit in the charts, but I'm not going to get too excited about that. Jacoby Brissett is a will they even start situation here with Drake May. Probably will start for a few weeks to start the season. So deep quarterback leagues are where he might be necessary to pick up, depending on how you draft your quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts is going to be obviously a confidence factor over 9,000. Maybe I shouldn't say obvious, but for fantasy reasons, that's going to be the case. The top of his ceiling did get taken down a little bit last year with them being a little bit more cautious with him in terms of running the ball and that offense not quite clicking at some point in the season. But regardless, he's been pretty darn solid for fantasy, and that the upside's there. So he's one of the top guys that you can have. Jared Goff isn't too bad, but he can have some stinkers here and there. So he is consistently competitive, just because most weeks he does pretty good, but every now and then also he's not fantastic. And usually they like to run the ball into the end zone. So usually he doesn't have those 3 touchdown games. His ceiling's a little bit capped as well. Baker Mayfield's going to get in here as a quarterback too, just something that, he did pretty good last year as I would say even a higher end quarterback too. I'm not so sure that repeats itself this year. Definitely might, but he's solid. He's going to bring us on to a guy who we're going to be taking a little bit of a risk on here with Jaden Daniels. He's in the consistently competitive tier here, but he is definitely a guy who, I mean, I could even be uncomfortably confident in. I would assume I might have him at the top of this tier. He's going to bring a lot of rushing upside that, in the mold of a Jalen Hurts, a Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, this type of upside that only few guys have and can offer you, and is enough to, and Kyler Murray's of the world, to really carry the guy to being consistently competitive each and every week, which across the season will give them a very, top 8 type of season quite potentially. So you throw in the touchdowns on top of that, and that's how it can be. That's going to bring us on to Joe Burrow, who I am uncomfortably confident in, given last season and the injuries and everything. And he's not going to have any kind of rushing upside, you would think. They'll be a little more protective of him at this stage, just given all the injuries. So, I'm uncomfortably confident because that offense should be really good. Week in and week out, Joe Burrow should still be really entering his prime. Maybe that's delayed a little bit because of time missed playing, but you get the idea here. I think he's a darn good quarterback, and I am confident, but there's some question marks to it. So I'm going to bring us on to Jordan Love, who I uncomfortably confident could probably be set for him, but he was consistently competitive. He's another guy. He doesn't quite have like that rushing upside that's some of the bigger rushers do have, and there are some question marks as well to Jordan Love about the second half of last season, if that's going to translate to an entire season or not. We'll see. He was inconsistent in college, and he was inconsistent last year overall, but because of how it works out, there's also reasons to think that he could be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, in which case he'll probably be a little bit of a value in terms of fantasy football, a top 6 kind of guy, if that happens. Josh Allen is, I think, number 1 on a lot of people's quarterback rankings, and I'm no different here. Confidence factor over 9,000 for him. He's an absolute beast, a baller, and things work out. It's not to say that there aren't some questions surrounding him, and maybe he gets knocked out of my number 1 spot, but I don't know by who. So it's a new offense there with Joe Brady. We did see that work, just getting installed, mid-season pretty well, and continue to have Josh Allen produce for half of that season. So that alleviates some of those concerns. That's going to bring us on to Justin Fields, which, will they even start is the question for him. So he gets named the starter or something like that. We'll change the rankings. That's going to bring us on to Justin Herbert, who I have as a low-end quarterback 1, high-end quarterback 2 upside. I was low on him last season. That did not end up hurting me in terms of where I had him ranked. So I don't recall if I'm low on him or not again this year, but I think he's, he definitely has upside to him. He doesn't have as much, the rushing upside and stuff isn't really there. And just looking at the team around him and how Jim Harbaugh wants to play ball, they should be pretty rush heavy. Just a limited amount of opportunities. Going to have to be super efficient and get the ball into the end zone through the air a lot more than I think we really should be expecting for this offense this year. So we're going to bring us down to Kirk Cousins, who's also not going to be in that tier. He's going to be up here consistently competitive. And that's not to say that there aren't any concerns for Kirk Cousins. He's older quarterback, just like Aaron Rodgers too, coming off of that calf injury. What might that look like? It might look bad. It might not be very good. That's potentially true for both of them. So there's some risk here, but at the same time, there's a lot of upside. Kirk Cousins, prolific passer in an offense that I think is going to be fantastic if Kirk Cousins is the same Kirk Cousins that he has been, through the time that he was with Minnesota. It's going to bring us on to Kyler Murray, who is, I'm uncomfortably confident in Kyler Murray. Had him last year, ended up being my quarterback because whoever had got injured, I don't recall. But he was my quarterback of choice down the stretch for the most part, and for the most part he came through. But it was tough to rank him very highly, even though he was on average doing pretty well, like 20 fantasy points per week. but he was living by thread. It was like most weeks he was entering the fourth quarter with like 8 points, and then he'd finish with 20.6 somehow or something like that. So that's, that uncomfortable confidence comes from real experience with Kyler Murray. This year, that should be a little bit better. That baseline, the living on the edge, shouldn't be so bad. He should be able to come out firing from time to time. That's, part of the reason is like they weren't going to rush until late into the game. And I think they also had the handcuffs on Kyler Murray a little bit for games because they didn't want to get him injured, because then they got him injured. If he got himself injured, this offseason would have been way different for Arizona. That's going to bring us on to Lamar Jackson, who's, confidence level over 9,000. He is absolutely fantastic. And he gives you all the fantasy value that you need in terms of the rushing upside. This brings us on to Matt Stafford, who is going to be in this low-end quarterback 1, high-end quarterback 2 upside. Similar story. I don't know if I have him ranked higher than Justin Herbert. I probably should. I have a little bit more faith in this offense in general. And he's coming off of a very good season last year. But as we know, that very good season was real football. Fantasy, he's still a middling kind of guy. And that's what we can expect again. But maybe just a little bit more consistently high end this year. Bring us on to Bo Nix. He's a risky pick here. He's going to be the quarterback, though. So there is that in Denver. I do think that they'll want to get that rushing game going to make Bo Nix comfortable this season 1. I don't think they're going to want to be passing a whole lot. I think they want to keep games close in general and just have Bo Nix game manage, not take too many risks. I believe that's probably the plan here in year 1 with Bo Nix. So, the upside just doesn't really seem like it's there, even if he is good. I think that those reins do not get taken off this year out of just wanting to follow the game plan kind of deal. Patrick Mahomes is, of course, he's, confidence level over 9,000. Patrick Mahomes, you know what you're getting with him. A pretty darn solid upside. I would say a very, very high floor. This year, the upside should be a little bit more. This passing attack should be a little bit more dangerous, prolific, boom or bust in a good way. So I have a little bit more faith in Patrick Mahomes this year, really, than I did even last year. So bring us on to Russell Wilson, who is a risky, low upside kind of guy. Not the best expectations for this offense. Expect this offense to be rush-heavy, Pittsburgh offense. And at any point, Justin Fields could be named the starter over Russell Wilson. So there's just quite a bit of risk with him. And then because of the fact that they want to be a rushing-first offense, I do believe that the upside is fairly low as well. So I'm really not expecting as good of a season fantasy-wise as last year. But, that's kind of the ceiling. Sam Darnold is, will they even start? It could be J.J. McCarthy starting. If Sam Darnold gets the start to start the season, I think we'll be a little bit more optimistic about the playmakers around them to begin the year. But he's going to be considered to be a rental, and I would say if you're 3 weeks in with some of these Minnesota weapons and they've done really, really well, maybe think about trading him away. Let's bring us on to Trevor Lawrence, who just got his big contract, consistently competitive. I do expect this offense to be tailored more towards his strengths, and so I do expect this year to be a little bit better, but I don't expect it to be totally smooth. I think next year is about the time that we'll be saying Trevor Lawrence, by the end of it, has earned his contract. Okay, we understand. We don't think that was a bad choice. I do think there's a chance this year that there's going to be some bumps that people will be questioning that contract throughout the year still. Just a couple of questions about that offense being able to be consistent. It might be kind of Buffalo Bills-esque, where like the EPA, I think it is per play, is really, really high. But they don't end up getting touchdowns often enough that they end up losing some games because they just don't have an offense that can string things together play after play, get those first downs. It's kind of a big play and then things fizzle out. Or, a couple plays, a big play, it ends up for a touchdown, but that's the only touchdown in the game. And they'll have to sit back and kick those field goals, maybe two that Buffalo didn't always kick last year. So bring us on to Tua Tagovailoa, consistently competitive. Things did not come together for him fantasy-wise last year, despite how prolific this offense was. There just wasn't enough passing touchdowns. The rushing game was doing very, very well, and finishing off a lot of drives with touchdowns. And I don't know how much that changes this year, but I do know that the potential for Tua to be a top 8 quarterback is definitely there. Probably still ends up, I think, better than last year in fantasy. It was still not top notch, is my guess. Will Levis obviously is going to bring some upside to him, but he's risky. He wasn't that great last year for fantasy for the most part, aside from like his first game that he played full time, or maybe it was his second game. So a lot of question marks with Will Levis. It's not like he was a first round pick; he's a second round pick. First round picks have like a 50% rate of success. That drops significantly as you go along. So, is that it? Oh no. A lot of upside with him too. I assume I have Will Levis right near the top end of this tier. That's going to bring us on to Brock Purdy, who, I have to convince you year in and year out that week in and week out, he's pretty darn consistent for fantasy football. He'll get you near that 20-point mark that Kyler Murray gets you, but he's a little less consistent because he doesn't have that rushing upside that Kyler Murray has. So the ceiling and the consistency are a little more shaky for Brock Purdy, but all in all, so far, he's been very good for you fantasy-wise, especially given where you've been able to get him in drafts. Bryce Young is going to be a risky, kind of guy here. Do I have to explain it? He had a pretty poor rookie season. Turning that around could definitely be a thing. He should be better this year. I just don't know how much better, and I love the idea of what they did. I don't love every player that they did it with over the last 2 years. So I'm still not 100% convinced that Bryce Young has some fantastic set of weapons around him. Better weapons, though. CJ Stroud, the opposite of Bryce Young. He did absolutely fantastic last year. And so still, he's coming into his second year. Could be some sophomore growing bumps, maybe things just don't quite come together as nicely as they did in his rookie season, but I'm pretty confident that they will based on what we saw, and I'm pretty confident based on what the team has done to put more weapons around CJ Stroud and build around him, that this will be a better offense, and thus the production in fantasy football will be better as well. So, mostly confident in CJ Stroud. That's going to bring us on to Caleb Williams, who, it's the unknown factor with Caleb Williams. The upside is very, very high, especially given the weapons that Chicago has put around him. Speak of the weapons that CJ Stroud got around him, well, Caleb Williams, not far behind, if not better. I would say going into the season, not better, but by the end of the year, we might say, hey, Caleb Williams actually has the better set of weapons around him than CJ Stroud. So, low-end quarterback 1, high-end quarterback 2, upside, very, very realistic for Caleb Williams. Just like last year, what I did with the CJ Strouds and the Bryce Youngs to start off with my rankings, I got a little less confident on it as the year went along, but I'm sticking to it from here on out, always for rookies for the most part, is that there's they get the benefit of the doubt over guys like Gardner Minshew because of this unknown. They could be fantastic, and if they're going to get that chance, especially if that chance is a for sure thing, they're worth taking a shot on at some point, even in single quarterback leagues as your backup quarterback, because you never know. You just never know. Dak Prescott is also consistently competitive. Look, he's a good NFL quarterback, and it translates to fantasy success as well year in and year out. He's maybe a couple of years away from being into this Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford kind of area where he has no rushing upside left. He likes to run around the end zone. I don't know if he did any of that last year, but he still had a top 6 quarterback showing last year in fantasy. So this offense, it worked out last year. It could definitely be a repeat this year, but I think that was the ceiling. I'm not expecting him to finish quite in the top 6, but as a quarterback 1, very likely. quite possible, we'll say. And then Daniel Jones, quarterback 2 territory here. Just 2 years ago, we saw him as a borderline quarterback 1 in fantasy football, so could happen again. But last year, we also saw him perform worse than the backup quarterbacks, quite frankly. So, I don't know. But they brought in Malik Neighbors. It should help things be a little bit easier for Daniel Jones. And maybe they, go back to 2 years ago and what they did and found success with, and bring a little bit more of that into this offense too. Just get that ball out quicker. And trust Daniel Jones on his feet a little bit more, maybe. I don't know. But there's upside there. So that is it for my quarterback rankings. Later on this week, check out on Wednesday, I'll do my quarterbacks and busts and sleepers are going to be in the same video because I have 5 combined between the two. For the most part, I believe I was quite in line with the ECR at the time of doing my rankings and checking that out, preparing for this video. So with that, that's the end of the video. A couple of announcements for channel announcements here. First of all, if you're interested in joining a listeners only league, become a member of the channel, 99 cents, and you'll get a password to the Discord server. On the FF Forge Discord server, you will see one of the channels is the Fantasy Football League 2024 ! Something right along those lines. It's pretty clear which one it is. Just go in there, say, hey, I'm interested, and if we get enough people, perfect. We don't get enough people, we'll try to do something anyways as a smaller, a group of like 5 or less or something like that, if that's the case. Channel membership perks as well. You will get access to my equalized value rankings. These are just like average fantasy points per week, which I think is the best measure of how a player performed on a season compared to looking at like their total fantasy points. Not that that's worthless, but slightly different story. And who do I trust on a week in and week out basis? I'll take the weekly average. However, that also has some flaws to it, and the equalized value system takes some of that flaw error out of it, and it does a better job of showing you who consistently helped you win week in and week out. And I've showed that a lot of times on the channel, that it does come to fruition to be a better telling of ranking who was better for you in fantasy football. So that is available for all of last year up on in one of the channels on the server, so you can check that out if you like to do all of your own homework. And that's, like I said, it's like a consistency type of ranking as well. So that'll give you a good idea for your own homework, and a reminder too, a refresher of how some of the guys might have did last season. And throughout the year, I keep up with the equalized value list for the 2024 season, and you will get access to seeing that throughout the season, and you can use that to help you with any kind of trade decisions come week 6, 7, 8. And then also, if you're interested in non-PPR or full PPR rankings, you can just ask for that. There's a channel for each of those up there. You just go into that channel, let me know that you're interested, and the moment that I see that, I will go ahead and get you some rankings out, so that way you are, I work in half PPR, so it's most relatable, but if you want specific rankings for you, I'm willing to do that for you if you're investing in the channel. So check all that out, and that's it. Peace out. I'll see you on Wednesday and Thursday live. That's the other thing. I will be here on YouTube, so come visit me then, and we'll do some drafting. Peace out.